Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look here today at AVAX, which is Avalanche, and it's an interesting coin, definitely a fan favorite too. I'm surprised with how much volume this has, not only here today, but also market capitalization. It's actually a pretty big coin. So check that out in your own time if you haven't already. Obviously, you're probably checking this out in the first place if you are invested or planning to do so. Hopefully, we can find some good guidance here for you today. And just know I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research and make sure you take ownership of your own trades by learning as much as you can from as many people as possible, right? Hopefully, I can be part of that, of course. I like to teach best practice and essentially just make sure that you understand better how to become, a more self-sufficient trader, okay? Now, I do have an option if you'd like to more so consider, autopilot, where I share all of my trades with my community members. There's a link in the description below for that. I average about an 80% success rate, and I just send out my, buy signals, sell signals, and stop targets to make sure that we know specifically what to do and how to do it once you get into a trade. Because a lot of times that's lost in translation, and nobody really truly understands that. We all have our own risk tolerance, of course, that varies, but it's important to kind of know what that looks like. So check that out in your own time. And without further ado, enough rambling from me. Let's just go ahead and check out the video. Let's get to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here today at AVAX, which is Avalanche. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first to get a baseline on the market so we know exactly what's going on, because any good trader will look at all the angles before they jump in and make an investment, right? Because again, this is investing, not gambling. So we got to look at all the facts, right? And looking at the facts first and foremost, we look at Bitcoin, right? That's kind of the leader. Most coins are reliant on Bitcoin's success. Bitcoin increases, all coins do too, and vice versa, right? But just to preface, so you understand, we have TradingView.com. That's the desktop application that I use myself personally. It's great for mobile as well. Recommend you utilize it. I use a paid version just because it gives me more than 2 indicators present at one time. So we recommend checking that out. I have a link in the description below for a free month if you'd like to consider, moving forward with that. If not, that's okay. Just know that it's kind of cumbersome to kind of keep adding and removing the indicators on TradingView, but it is a fantastic evaluation of all the coins you need to look at. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, moving forward, we're going to go ahead and look at Bitcoin. Obviously, what I want to do first is make sure we look at our simple moving averages. Now, the SMA 50 was just broken. We're looking at that being a potential resistance now moving forward. It was working as a strong support for the most part here recently. Bear in mind, we do also have a support level of about 42,500. And of course, the simple moving average 200 is trailing behind. We won't probably see that intersect for some time, at least we certainly hope not. Otherwise, we're in some trouble there. But safe to say at this point, Bitcoin's kind of calming down and slowing down. I think on the 1 hour chart, TD sequential, we're seeing an reach a state of exhaustion. So there's a great chance we're going to be able to see this turn around and continue back upwards. Now, as far as this little indication here, I got this channel here. That's actually the really high volume channel between 45.5 and 45.7. That's a strong channel there where there's been the most amount of volume in the last, I think 72 hours. And that's just kind of creating a significant support level. Now it's a resistance, of course, but that was a support prior to that. Okay, so just keep that in mind that once we break back above that, we should be in pretty good shape. Also note that 45,200 is another support level that was just broken as well. It could be a potential resistance, but this 4 hour time frame hasn't closed yet, so we're not quite there. We'll see when we get there. All right, so moving on to Ethereum, just to kind of clarify, it's very much the same situation for Ethereum. We lost the 50-day simple moving average. We have a few support levels here. We got 2,900 as a major support. That's the next available. So we're looking at about $100 off from that support. We've also got a major support about 2,400 and a potential resistance, probably likely a continued resistance at about 3,250. Okay, but all in all, pretty much the same situation for Ethereum as we can experience for Bitcoin. Now, AVAX is a different story. As we can see, the price action is still progressing, so to speak, outside of what we saw for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yes, there's retracement, of course, but we had a significant increase here today that was likely a fundamental catalyst that caused the price action to increase. Okay. Keep this in mind too. The 1 day chart here could close in the near future. It's actually, we're not too far off from a new trading day. So this very well could close above the 200. If it does, that would be make the 200 as a support level, in which that would mean that we could use that as a support moving forward for the next few trading days. Okay, so that's really awesome news for AVAX. Also bear in mind too, its average true range before the major sell-off from Bitcoin on April 17th, which is right here, is somewhere between $22 and $37, right? So kind of split the difference, just say $30 is kind of the middle ground there, whereas the price action is currently around 23. So we're in the lower half of that channel, you could say. And that being said, that just means that AVAX does have a lot more room for growth, because bear in mind, back here, just before April 17th, Bitcoin was hovering around 50 to 60,000. Actually, I think it was closer to 63 just before that fall off. But generally speaking, if Bitcoin's hovering around 50 to 60,000 and the price action is traveling between 25 and 37, approximately, how much higher is AVAX going to go, right? You kind of ask yourself that. I like to look at it that way. Obviously, again, there are some fundamentals that hold true and kind of drive the price. There's a good indication that there's something pushing the price action here today, but just something to note. That's something you want to kind of remember in the back of your mind. Moving on, we got the RSI extremely overbought, 86. The MACD is also converged back on the 22nd of July, which is normal because that's pretty much when Bitcoin ramped back up past 30,000, and it's kind of been on a significant run lately. So finally, AVAX took off here today. Moving on to the 4-hour chart, let's go ahead and quickly identify the 50 is working as a simple, obviously the simple moving average is working as a support level. Same with the 200, which hasn't been tested in a while. We'll likely see the 50 get tested here in the fairly near future, because generally speaking, an increase like this should retrace approximately 50% of the original starting point. So just bear that in mind. And if you look here, of course, we've got, see the RSI is right over 70. So that's pretty straightforward, pretty normal here. So if you have just say a position that you want to take profits on, I'd recommend taking your profits soon, just based on the fact that we don't know if this is going to close above or below the 200-day simple moving average. And obviously there's going to be a lot of price movement between now and tomorrow at this time. So I would just say, if you're more of a day trader, obviously you would have to consider taking your profits by now. But if you're more of a short-term swing trader, you might want to consider holding on a little bit longer, because again, we're at the bottom section, the bottom half of that true range that we had before, and the likelihood of Bitcoin hitting 50,000 in the near future is very high, right? So we got to keep that in mind too. With the momentum it has, we're still in the midst of a bull run. We did have a strong convergence here today on the 16th at 2100, so we'll just go ahead and mark that as well. So see here, 16th at 21, right there. So you got a MACD convergence right there. I always like to mark that too. So if you're new to the channel and you may be unfamiliar with why is that relevant? Well, first of all, the MACD 4-hour chart, that is the most important indicator you could utilize as far as swing trading or just understanding the general momentum of bulls versus bears. So in this example here, obviously with the MACD being having converged right here, or in other words, it didn't actually converge. Normally it'd come down and swing upwards. Since it bounced off of it without actually even touching it, that's even a stronger convergence. And when that happens, of course, that basically is a signal to go long for a swing trade, more importantly, right? But if we look at the 1-hour chart and we enable the Ishimoku cloud, you can take a look here and you'll see that there's a common correlation. Whereas just before that, I would say maybe roughly 24 hours before that, it was signaling a buy signal here to go long, right? Because the price came up, came down, and effectively bounced off the cloud and just shot straight up. Okay, so if you're going to look for anything, for as far as the swing trading is concerned, even with day trading, of course, you want to look at this too. That's why I recommend looking at 1-day chart all the way down. But you simply want to look at the MACD, see if there's going to be a convergence, and that's when the 12, the exponential moving average, intersects with the 26 in an upward fashion, which we saw earlier. Obviously, it wasn't exact; it was kind of bouncing off of it, but that's the concept and what you want to try to look at, right? So this is a divergence, essentially, where the price is coming back down, right? So just something to pay attention to. So yeah, that's what I like to utilize on the 1-hour chart. The other thing I also like to look at is TD Sequential. This looks like we do have a few resets here, so no big deal. But if you are new to TD Sequential, recommend getting familiar with it, specifically more so on the 1-hour chart, just because it kind of gives us an idea of where market exhaustion is holding. In other words, I mentioned Bitcoin has market exhaustion. If you see right here, do you see this 1 all the way down to the 9? When you hit the 9, there's a reset. In other words, the number should start counting back upwards because you've hit 9 hours of bearish momentum in this example. And that basically puts us in a position where the price will likely turn around, right? Because the bears are exhausted and essentially it's the bulls' turn to play, or trying to drive the price back up, so to speak. Now it's not foolproof, it's not guaranteed until we get this full reset. It is still counting down, but once we get a 1 and it starts counting up, then we should likely see, somewhere in the range of maybe 8 to 12 hours of bullish momentum. That's why I feel confident that we're going to be able to see the price come back up here, just based on the fact that this is telling us right now that we are at a state of exhaustion. The bears have, done what they can, and we'll likely see some type of increase this evening or soon, if you will. All right, so moving forward, that's kind of what I want to identify there on TD Sequential. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 15, just see if we can quickly identify an entry point, if it's even worthwhile at this point. It does look like we are getting a signal here to consider taking entry. The one thing I would recommend and exercise caution on is just the simple fact that big picture, you have to know, where your support and resistance levels are, right? Now, we kind of identified that earlier, that the 200 is potentially a support level, right? So the price is soon to close. In fact, actually in 1 minute, it will close right above that. So that being said, this is a support level. So right at about 23.15 is going to be our current support, right? So we'll go ahead and mark that. That way, if the price retraces back down, it should likely bounce off of that support level. Let's see if there's any other supports at this point. It's not exactly, well, there was a couple of times. Yeah, I mean, it's been reaffirmed a couple of times back here, but I would say that's the most relevant, most recent one. As far as, yeah, we can mark that here. Right at about 27.75 or 27, what is it, 27? Yeah, we'll say 27.75, that's the next major resistance. Okay, so again, keep in mind $30 is approximately its average true range. That's the middlemost average, if you will. So this does have some room for growth, but I would say the next major milestone will be 27.75. And ideally, we need to get the price action to go sideways here first in order for that to happen. What I mean by that is, if you're familiar with the channel, you've heard me say this plenty of times in the past, any good bull run needs to be able to have a staircase pattern, right? So in essence, you could say this is a staircase, right? It comes up and over. Well, it's kind of performing a staircase, so to speak, right? But this massive increase has to retrace, right? And it's already done that, but it's like, okay, no, we want this to close above this support level. So the price is going to close above support at 23, what is that? It's about 20, we can say round number $23, but it's closer to about 23.10. And that's going to be considered a support level moving forward. So the price action can stay above that, then we're going to be in good shape for it to kind of leg up again. But if it drops below and continues to retrace, then you might want to wait for a secondary support level, maybe use the Fibonacci retracement tool to identify that. Me personally, if we lose this support, I would wait it out and wait and see what happens. If you have a position open right now, create a sell stop just below that to make sure you take profits if in fact you have a position where you're okay with doing so. Because bear in mind, again, we're in the average true range of this coin. So how much higher will it go? Hard to say specifically unless there's a big fundamental catalyst. It'll probably continue to stay in the range of $23 to $37, right? So just something to note, but what I want to get at here is the fact that any good bull run is going to do a staircase pattern. So this staircase essentially came up so hard and so quickly that it had to retrace back down. And in fact, it retraced back down previously, but not super hard because it didn't increase so fast, right? Because it's like that whole theory of what goes up must come down, the whole gravity, the law of nature, so to speak, right? So in this sense here, the law of crypto or trading essentially is that if you have an increase, a sharp increase, it'll typically retrace by 50% and then go sideways. Well, we see this here. I mean, if you look at this from here to here, that's about a 30% increase. And what do you know? The price kind of bottomed out right around the halfway point. So you could literally say that this is a support level right here at this point. Okay. So right now we have about, just say 2150 is a support. We have another support at 2315. And then of course, a major resistance upwards of about 2775. Okay. But in order for this to leg up again, I would like to see it go sideways for a few more hours. If nothing else, maybe even just say a day or two, and then for it to leg up. So if you're going to watch this for the next couple of days, set a stop limit or a stop loss at about 2150, and perhaps even consider taking some profits closer to 23, because the price will likely bounce off one of these two areas, and then hopefully continue upwards And if Bitcoin will take off, or just say Bitcoin jumps back up to 47, 48,000 here in the near future, which I'm speculating will happen, then I would see Avalanche creating an avalanche and shooting itself up again, right? So a lot of little factors that you want to take into consideration, but generally speaking, it's in good shape. It's not terrible. It's done its retracement already, and I think it's going to likely go sideways for a little bit longer before we see a massive increase. So hopefully you found benefit here, obviously. If you didn't, that's quite all right. Feel free to comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If you're interested in following my trading style, I utilize everything we just looked here in this video in my trades every week, right? So I consistently trade throughout the weeks. Some days more, some days less, but I share all of my trades with my community members. Feel free to reference that in the link in the description below for my Patreon account. Other than that, check out my Telegram community, get engaged there. Got a good group of folks there, awesome admin, and everything's looking very good there. So check that out in your own time. But I do want to thank you again so much for joining me here today, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take good care. Thank you.